Okay, here's justify number 9. And it's asking, what is the likelihood or the probability of heads, then tails, then heads again on 3 tosses of a coin? So here the student lists all the possible outcomes of tossing a coin 3 different times. So that's why there's 3 parts in each outcome. The first letter is going to represent toss 1, second letter is going to represent toss 2, third letter would represent toss 3. And the one that you're looking for is heads, then tails, then heads. So the probability or the likelihood of getting heads, tails, heads is 1 out of 8 because there's one outcome that is desirable out of the 8 possible outcomes that you have when you're tossing a coin 3 times. Another student writes the probability is 0.125. This is the answer because there is a half chance of flipping either heads or tails. So the likelihood of getting heads is 1 out of 2 because there's 1 heads out of 2 possible outcomes for one coin toss. And since it is being flipped 3 times, then we could multiply 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. So let's take a look at that. So toss 1 would be a likelihood of 1/2. And then multiplying that by 1/2 would reduce that likelihood. And that should make sense because it's harder to get 2 different parts to your outcome than just 1. So it's easier to get a heads or a tails than a heads, then a tails, or a tails, then a heads, or a heads, then a heads. So we're reducing the likelihood by multiplying. So 1/2 of 1/2 would be 1/4. And then since there's not just 2 tosses of a coin, there's 3, we could multiply that by another 1/2, which would reduce the likelihood even further because it's harder to get 3 different parts to your outcome. This gives you that 1 out of 8, which is equal to 0.125, which is 12.5%. And the answer of 0.05 or 0.5 or 50% would be eliminated since that's a 50% probability that is not possible. And that's not possible because that's for a 1 coin toss, and it's supposed to get reduced in likelihood if you're tossing it 3 times, which would reduce the likelihood of getting a possible outcome. Another student writes, off the bat, we can eliminate 0.5 since that is the chance to land either heads or tails on 1 toss of a coin. It also isn't 0.25 because that is the probability of 2 coin tosses. And then that has to be reduced even further by multiplying another 1/2, which would give us 0.125, which is equal to 1/8. Because tossing a coin 3 times gives you 8 different outcomes. Heads, then tails, then heads is one of them. So that's also reiterated from here as well. So hopefully this makes sense. And these are 2 good ones to eliminate because for several reasons, but one of them was just stated here. And remember, multiplying a fraction of a number will reduce the likelihood, and in which case it should be reduced because it's harder to do this outcome than just 2 different letters, which would represent 2 tosses of a coin or 1 toss of a coin if you were just looking at 1.